A lot of my paintings deal with far away, with passage, with moving from one place to another place that sometimes it's not always comfortable. I haven't titled this one. I usually do. This is one of that group. This was done in, what did I say, March?
March 27th.
And I do one painting at a time. And so it has something to do with that thing of going, maybe a figure here, sort of sense of having come from here to go to there, and it is this kind of experience of being in an experience, this curved thing. Robert Natkin, a very old and close friend, I have a portrait he did of me upstairs. Robert Natkin, who showed with Zabreski for a long, long time, now dead. So they all moved to New York because Chicago wasn't really interested in abstract painting, and I think he's right. The people that could get their teeth into painting in Chicago were much more interested in figurative work. Well, New York painters are New York artists, and San Francisco painters are San Francisco artists. And there are people who work in styles that are more suited for an area that they admire that is not where they are.
But is there a Texas school style? Even Texas modernism style?
It's an attitude. And this, I poured solvent through the middle of the painting and then rubbed it.
So that's happened to
and it pulls the paint apart and partially dissolves it. And it's a little bit like slapping it in the face. And what happens is, did the same thing that tearing of the paper did. When you look at Francis Bacon, very often there'll be a big blob of white. He puts the white paint on his, backs up to the painting, turns away from the painting, goes like that. The blob of paint hits the painting wherever it hits the painting. And that kind of finishes it in a way.
When you met Jack Boynton in the 1950s, I guess he just had some show in New York before that.
That was after, actually, at Laura Barone's gallery. I have the catalog in the house, that reproduction. But Jack was had some attention given to him in New York and around. That was when Dorothy Miller was actually being aggressive and picking out things in the hinterland to show. Yeah. That all stopped about 1960. And I mean, really, really came to a close, and New York pulled all of their boys in to just pay attention to New York. That was painfully aware of that when I saw the opening show at the Whitney Museum. And it made the thing, we knew America is hard to see. Well, according to that, America's still pretty impossible to see. There's a lot of New York stuff. I can tell one piece from Chicago, Richard Hunt's sculpture, an early piece, and a smattering of things from the West Coast, and nothing else. Also, not a single Diebenkorn in that inaugural show at the Whitney Museum. And it was the Diebenkorn show that the Whitney Museum did of the Ocean Park series that went on to win the grand prize at the Venice Biennale about 10 years before, 15 years before. I thought that was very odd, and reinforced art newspapers' arguments about it being New York being controlled by the people who graduate from that group of 6 or 7 universities, and all of that both the artists and the critics all from the same pot. And I know that happens, and it just sort of brought it in together. I also know that Diebenkorn had a hell of a time showing his work and getting his work paid attention to in New York, even though Robert Hughes loved it. But he showed with Poindexter Gallery, Natkin's gallery, and Natkin knew him, and So it was, and Diebenkorn had a little. I mean, he could afford to kind of go and do it and put them. He just really had a hard time in New York, waiting for passage, and it would have been in February, I imagine.
Yes, February 11th.
There you go. So, a number of my paintings had to do are titled "Waiting for Passage." It has to do with dying and expectation of death. I've lost a number of friends over the years, and I have some sort of sense of how complex that can be. And if I can metaphorically deal with it, I do. And having a boat at a harbor, the one I did just finished just 2 weeks before my wife died, also waiting for passage. A boat in the foreground, headed out, and a sea, and then a distant